So Val had mentioned that today would be Camp Sunday, which is the Kids Performance Sunday, and she asked if we could do some camp songs. And I'm like, yes, I always love getting ideas from people for songs to sing. And these songs are very familiar probably to all of you, and ones that the kids really enjoy singing. So we're going to do a few. Kyle has graciously agreed to play guitar with us, just like around the mill campfire. And Marie is going to be playing a song at the end that we want all of you to join in on. So I will be asking you to participate at some points in the singing. The kids are going to sing start with Kumbaya, a familiar one. We're going to sing a couple verses, and then I'm going to ask you guys to join in on the last verse, and we'll do that again later in their performance. So be prepared. I'm expecting great things. Also, after church in honor of Camp Sunday, we have s'mores Girl Scout cookies that we'll be handing out to everyone with milk. So please join the kids in the narthex for some cookies afterwards. Guys, you only get cookies if you sing really great. No pressure, that's right. Okay. So let's start with Kumbaya. You guys ready? Kumbaya, my Lord, Kumbaya. Kumbaya, my Lord, Kumbaya. Kumbaya, my Lord, Kumbaya. Oh Lord, Kumbaya. Someone's praying, Lord, Kumbaya. Someone's praying, Lord, Kumbaya. Someone's praying, Lord, Kumbaya. Oh Lord, Kumbaya. Let us praise the Lord. Let us praise the Lord, Kumbaya. Let us praise the Lord, Kumbaya. Let us praise the Lord, Kumbaya. Oh Lord, Kumbaya. All right, congregation, not bad. All right, now we're going to have Pastor Edwin join us for a little bit. We are going to sing a little more upbeat song, Do Lord. You guys ready? Lord, oh, do Lord, oh, do remember me. Do Lord, oh, do Lord, oh, do remember me. Do Lord, oh, do Lord, oh, do remember me. Maybe I took Jesus as my Savior, you take him too. I took Jesus Well, I won't say how long ago that was, but the kids really enjoyed it. So you can't get to heaven. Are you ready to echo me? Oh, you can't get to heaven. Oh, you can't get to heaven. In roller skates. In roller skates. 'Cause you'll roll right by those pearly gates. Oh, you can't get to heaven in roller skates. 'Cause you'll roll right by those pearly gates. I ain't gonna dream my Lord no more. Sing it out. I ain't gonna dream my Lord no more. I ain't gonna dream my Lord no more. I ain't gonna dream my Lord no more. Oh, you can't get to heaven. Oh, you can't get to heaven. In a limousine. In a limousine. 'Cause the Lord ain't got no gasoline. No gasoline. Oh, you can't get to heaven in a limousine. 'Cause the Lord ain't got no gasoline. I ain't gonna dream my Lord no more. Okay, sing loud. I ain't gonna dream my Lord no more. I ain't gonna dream my Lord no more. I ain't gonna dream my Lord no more. Oh, you can't get to heaven. Oh, you can't get to heaven. In Pastor Edwin's shoes. 'Cause there ain't no room for those big canoes. Oh, you can't get to heaven in Pastor Edwin's shoes. 'Cause there ain't no room for those big canoes. I ain't gonna dream my Lord no more. Sing it out. I ain't gonna dream my Lord no more. I ain't gonna dream my Lord no more. I ain't gonna dream my Lord no more. Last verse. If you get there, before I do, just dig a hole and pull me through. If you get there before I do, just dig a hole and pull me through. I ain't gonna dream my Lord no more. That's not good. I ain't gonna dream my Lord no more. I ain't gonna dream my Lord no more. I ain't gonna dream my Lord no more. Yay. All right, our very last song is going to be sung with the congregation. It's in your hymnals, verse 572. If you don't know it, it's called Pass It On. Verses 1 and 3 only. All right, all the kids to come up front now. We're going to stand up front. It only takes a spark to get a fire going. Souls around and warm it's flowing. That's how it's supposed to. Once you've experienced it, it's when it's done. Everyone must be passed on. Alright, last verse. Usually, my friend, it's happiness that I found. You can depend on Him. It matters not where you're at. I'll shout it on the mountaintop, praise God. The Lord of love has come to me. I want to pass it on. Congregation again.
Have you ever been tempted? In today's society, we're getting tempted all the time. How do you handle temptation? Today we hear from Matthew 4 how Jesus was tempted. Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. He fasted 40 days and 40 nights, and afterwards he was famished. The tempter came and said to him, If you're the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread. But Jesus answered, it is written, no one does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. Then the devil took him to the holy city and placed him on the pinnacle of the temple, saying to him, if you're the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you, and on their hands they will bear you up, so that you will not dash your foot against the stones. And Jesus said to him, again it is written, do not put the Lord your God to the test. Again the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. And he said to him, all these I will give you if you will fall down and worship me. And Jesus once again said to him, away with you, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve only him. And then the devil left him, and suddenly angels came and waited on him.
Have you ever asked yourself the question, why was Jesus tempted? What was the point of that? Because at first glance, we see Jesus' temptation, and why? He's the Son of God. How can he really be tempted? As we know, he won't submit. But I think much like the cross, this encounter with the devil and Jesus is inevitable. It's been happening indeed since before Jesus' birth, when all the babies are commanded to be killed, when they find out that, the next king is born, and they try to thwart that. And yet we know Jesus will overcome the temptation. But why was Jesus tempted? Why is this story right in the middle of between Jesus' baptism and his ministry? Matthew puts it right in the middle. Jesus is tempted for bread, to nourish his hunger, to save himself from danger, tempted to take the easy route, to take all the power that the devil can give him. And each time he rejects this temptation, he sets up us readers for what is to come. He points to the cross, to something greater, something that's not necessarily a temptation, but something that Jesus is giving himself over to. Now, certainly, God can save himself from these temptations and from the cross. He can refuse the temptation to sin. But I think in our humanity, we need to see God offering the sacrifice and refusing temptation in order for us to learn that the way out is through his strength. That he has the strength to say no to evil, to temptation, and that he offers us that strength. C.S. Lewis, he wrote this book, really interesting. It's the story of two tempters, two devils. One is called Wormwood, and Wormwood is writing to his uncle named Screwtape, and this is called the Screwtape Letters. I don't know, maybe you've heard of it. But there's a very, very interesting part in this book in which Screwtape, as he's mentoring this young devil in the making, tells him how to tempt people to apathy, how to tempt people to just kind of be spiritual, but not religious. Sounds familiar? He says, keep them spiritual and not practical. As it is, the practical things often brings people to God. When you put God to real life, encourage them to pray for something tangible, for desired ends, so direct his prayers, and this is the one that Wormwood is working on. And so direct this prayer to objects and not to God. Pray for things, not to God. Allow, and he calls it the patient. Allow the patient to be oversensitive until everything, even his mother, gets on his nerves. Keep his prayers formless, as they are easier to manipulate. Turn his gaze, and this is the hardest part, turn his gaze away from God and toward himself. Create a subtle conflict when he prays for courage. Let him find himself turning boastful. Well, in the final letter, Wormwood doesn't do a good job. This person goes to heaven anyway. And he ends up leaving in failure and just getting the anger of Screwtape. You know, this story is not a story that of trying to create an army of ruthless killers, but rather of people who are just apathetic. Apathetic, right in the middle of the things of God. It's trying to create a generation of people who define themselves by selfishness and insincerity, of pettiness and pride, fear, and the need to control the things of this world. That is what Screwtape and Wormwood are trying to do. And that indeed is a big temptation. And I think that's more true in our lives than we want to admit sometimes. Because I don't think many of us, I don't know, when was the last time you saw the devil show up to you and say, come on this high and holy mountain, I'll give you all the power of the world if you do all these things. That doesn't happen. But what does happen are those moments when we're tempted to a little bit of pride, a little bit of vanity, a little bit of apathy. And that little bit grows a little bit more. And these are just as dark as Jesus' temptations in the desert. Perhaps even more so. Because we're weak. And we need God's help. Because most of the time, these temptations don't come with a face. They don't come with this slick figure taking us up to mountaintops and testing us. But they come subtly, over time. As we are gathered today on this first Sunday of Lent, we stand with God, acknowledging the dark places in our lives that will definitely come. And we'll come face to face with them and understand them and see them in our own lives and ask God for forgiveness. That's what Lenten penitence is about. That's what it means to go before God's presence as we walk towards perfection. It's not about guilt. It's about freedom. It's about the freedom from the control of those things that make us insecure, those things that make us fearful, those things that have power over us, that gain power over us, irrational as they may be. It's about letting go of the temptation of holding on and thinking that we can do life on our own without God and without God's people. And it's about surrendering unto Christ and allowing Him to be Lord of all of our lives.